Charlotte's called the New South's crown jewel, a booming banking hub with affordable housing and southern charm. But here's the thing, it has one of the fastest exit rates of any major American city. People move here excited, and they're gone within 3 years. So what are they discovering that the real estate agents aren't mentioning? Let's start with the tale of two cities, because this is the foundation everything else is built on. The Charlotte you see in promotional material exists. It's real. Uptown has those stunning glass bank towers. The South End neighborhood has been transformed into a trendy playground of breweries and overpriced apartments that look great in photos. The Plaza Midwood area has carefully curated vintage shops and brunch spots. This version of Charlotte is clean, walkable, and feels genuinely cosmopolitan. But that Charlotte represents maybe 15% of the actual city. The other 85% is radically different. Drive 15 minutes in almost any direction from uptown, and you'll find neighborhoods with some of the highest poverty rates in the Southeast. We're talking about entire zip codes where the median household income is under $30,000. And it's not getting better. It's accelerating. Why does this matter if you're planning to move there? Because the Charlotte that's marketed to you might not be the Charlotte you can actually afford to live in. And even if you can afford it initially, there's a trap waiting. And that trap starts with housing. Charlotte loves to advertise itself as affordable compared to other growing metros. And technically, that's still true, if you compare it to San Francisco or Seattle. But here's what the real estate agents don't tell you. Charlotte's housing costs are rising faster than wages, and they have been for years. Between 2000 and 2020, median home prices increased by 140%, while median household income only increased by 50%. And that gap is widening at an alarming rate. The median home price in Charlotte hit $393,000 in 2026, up from around $273,000 just 4 years earlier. That's a 44% increase in 4 years. Meanwhile, the median household income is around $78,000. You can do the math on what that means for actually being able to buy a home without stretching yourself dangerously thin. And rent hasn't been spared either. The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in any decent area is pushing $1,500 to $1,800, which is around 40% of that median income going just to rent before utilities, transportation, or food. But here's where it gets worse. Investors have figured out that Charlotte is a growth market, and they're buying up properties faster than locals can. Corporate landlords and investment firms now own a staggering percentage of Charlotte's rental housing, which means they can charge whatever the market will bear, and you have basically no leverage. So, you're trapped between unaffordable homes to buy and ever-increasing rent with landlords who know you don't have many options. At least you'll save money with no state income tax, right? Well, not exactly. While North Carolina doesn't have a state income tax, Charlotte makes up for it in creative ways. Property taxes in Mecklenburg County keep climbing. They've increased every single year for over a decade. And unlike income taxes that scale with earnings, property taxes hit everyone, including people on fixed incomes who bought homes back when they were affordable. But property taxes are just the start. Charlotte privatized many of its utilities, which means companies like Duke Energy can charge pretty much whatever they want. And they do. Utility costs in Charlotte are noticeably higher than the national average, especially in summer when running your AC is non-negotiable. You'll see electric bills hitting $300 to $400 per month during July and August. And about that summer heat, Charlotte's weather is marketed as 4 distinct seasons and mild compared to deeper south. That's misleading at best. Summers in Charlotte are brutal, not just hot, but oppressively humid. And it's not a dry heat where you can find shade and feel better. It's the kind of sticky, suffocating humidity that makes you sweat through your shirt walking from your car to the grocery store. But here's the part nobody talks about. Charlotte has one of the worst urban heat island effects in the Southeast. The city's rapid development prioritized building over green space, which means there's significantly less tree canopy than there used to be. And where trees do exist, they're mostly in wealthy areas, the places where people can afford homes with big yards. In lower-income neighborhoods, the tree canopy can be 30 to 40% less dense, which translates to temperatures being 10 to 15 degrees hotter than in wealthier areas. And you'll need that AC constantly, which brings us back to those Duke Energy bills. Speaking of Duke Energy, let's talk about the water. In 2014, a coal ash spill from a Duke Energy plant contaminated the Dan River with 39,000 tons of toxic sludge. It was one of the largest environmental disasters in North Carolina history. The company was fined, there were investigations, and everyone said the right things about it never happening again. Except coal ash contamination is still an ongoing problem. Duke Energy has coal ash ponds sitting near drinking water sources across the Charlotte metro area. In 2018, researchers found that private wells near these sites had dangerous levels of contamination. The company's cleanup efforts have been, let's be generous here, inadequate. But coal ash isn't even the only water quality issue. In recent years, PFAS chemicals have been detected in Charlotte's water supply. These are forever chemicals that don't break down and have been linked to cancer and other serious health issues. Now, the city says levels are within EPA guidelines. But here's the problem. EPA guidelines for PFAS have been continuously revised downward as we learn more about how dangerous they are. What was considered safe 5 years ago is now considered a health risk. And many scientists argue that there is no truly safe level of PFAS exposure. Residents in some Charlotte neighborhoods have been advised not to drink tap water. Think about it. In a growing American city, people are being told their tap water isn't safe. But unlike Flint, Michigan, which became a national scandal, Charlotte's water issues have somehow stayed relatively quiet. Maybe because the affected areas tend to be the Charlotte that real estate agents don't show you. And if you think you'll just move to a better neighborhood, well, that circles back to the housing trap. At least the job market is strong, right? That's the whole reason Charlotte grew in the first place. Well, if you're in banking or finance, yes, Charlotte is second only to New York City in terms of banking assets. Bank of America alone employs about 15,000 people in that area. Add in Wells Fargo, Truist, and the countless supporting financial firms, and you've got a genuine banking hub. But here's the catch. Banking jobs represent a relatively small percentage of Charlotte's total employment. Most people in Charlotte don't work in finance. They work in service industries, healthcare, education, construction, fields where wages have not kept up with the rising cost of living. The Charlotte-Mecklenburg area has a median household income of around $66,000, which sounds reasonable until you remember those housing costs we discussed. A significant portion of Charlotte's workforce is earning $30,000 to $50,000 per year, trying to survive in a city that's increasingly pricing them out. And this isn't an accident. Charlotte's entire economic development strategy has been built around attracting corporations and high-wage workers while doing very little to ensure that growth benefits existing residents. The result is a city where wealth is concentrated on a small percentage of workers while everyone else scrambles. This is why you see the tale of two Charlottes playing out everywhere. The banking professionals live in Myers Park and Dilworth versus the service workers living in neighborhoods that don't have grocery stores. The people who can afford the $2,500 a month luxury apartments downtown versus the people paying $1,400,000 for outdated units in areas with rising crime rates. Oh, about that crime. Charlotte's crime rate is higher than you'd expect for a city that markets itself as safe and family-friendly. The violent crime rate in Charlotte is about 7.6 per 1,000 residents, which is higher than the North Carolina average and significantly higher than the national average. Property crime is even more common, with rates well above both state and national figures. But here's the thing. Crime in Charlotte is heavily concentrated in specific areas, usually the same areas dealing with poverty, poor infrastructure, and lack of investment. The Charlotte you see in tourist guides is generally safe, but drift into the wrong neighborhood, and the reality changes fast. So you've got unsafe areas you need to avoid, affordable areas that might have contaminated water, and desirable areas you can't afford. Which brings us to transportation. You might think, well, I'll just live somewhere affordable and commute to work. That's what everyone thinks. Unfortunately, Charlotte's traffic is a nightmare that gets worse every year. The average commute time in Charlotte is around 25.3 minutes, which doesn't sound terrible until you realize that's the average. If you're coming from any of the affordable areas on the outskirts into uptown or the business districts, you're looking at 45 minutes to an hour each way during rush hour. That's 90 minutes to 2 hours of your day, 5 days a week, sitting in traffic. And unlike cities that have invested in public transit to address this, Charlotte has, well, almost nothing. There's a light rail line that covers a tiny fraction of the metro area. The bus system is underfunded and doesn't serve many of the areas where affordable housing exists. For most Charlotte residents, a car isn't just convenient, it's absolutely essential, which means you're paying for a car insurance, gas, parking, and maintenance. And you're burning 10 to 15 hours per week just getting to and from work. The city has talked about expanding public transit for decades. Every few years, there's a new plan, a new proposal, a new promise. Nothing meaningful has happened. And based on Charlotte's track record of prioritizing development over infrastructure, nothing meaningful is likely to happen anytime soon. So you're stuck in your car, breathing in the increasingly polluted air. Charlotte ranks in the bottom half of U.S. cities for air quality. Stuck in traffic, trying to get a job that might not pay you enough to afford the city that job is located in. And here's the thing that ties all of this together. None of this is an accident. Charlotte's development model has been intentional. Attract corporations with tax breaks and favorable business conditions. Let developers build luxury housing and mixed-use developments. Market the city to high-earning transplants, and let everything else, infrastructure, public services, affordable housing, environmental protection, lag behind. The result is a city that works beautifully if you're in the top 20% of earners. For everyone else, it's a series of traps, housing costs that rise faster than wages, car dependency that drains your budget, services that cost more because they're privatized, and a political structure that prioritizes growth over livability. This is why people leave Charlotte after just a few years. They arrive thinking they found an affordable southern city with opportunities. They discover that Charlotte is only affordable if you're not actually living there. It's affordable to visit, or to live in if you're making $100,000 plus. For everyone else, it's a city designed to extract wealth through housing costs, utility bills, and transportation expenses, while offering very little in return. To be clear, Charlotte has real positives. There are good restaurants, the craft beer scene is legitimate, the weather is genuinely nice in spring and fall, and some neighborhoods have genuine character. If you're moving there for a high-paying job in finance, you might love it. But if you're moving there thinking it's a cheap alternative to other growing cities, or that Southern hospitality means better quality of life, or that rapid growth equals opportunity for everyone, you need to understand what you're actually getting into. Two Charlottes exist. One of them doesn't have room for most people. The other one has problems nobody's solving. Make sure you know which Charlotte you're really moving to. Thanks for watching. If you found this useful, or if it made you rethink your plans, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. It really does help us keep making these videos. And if you've lived in Charlotte or you're there now, drop your experience in the comments. I read all of them, and they help other people make better decisions. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.